On May 10, 2026, a United States Air Force F-35A Lightning II was operating over the Gulf of Oman, the same waters where this conflict began 73 days earlier, where the blockade is enforced daily, where carrier-based aircraft have been flying continuous combat missions since February without pause. At some point during that sortie, the pilot manually typed a 4-digit code into the transponder, 7700. The aircraft appeared briefly on civilian flight tracking systems, then turned hard toward UAE airspace, and the transponder went completely dark. By the morning of May 11th, Iranian state media had built an entire information operation around those 4 digits. Every outlet amplified the claim simultaneously. Iran had scored a combat kill against the most advanced fighter aircraft ever produced. There is a single operational fact that dismantles the entire Iranian narrative. You do not squawk 7700 when you take battle damage. You have to manually type that code. It is not triggered by weapons impact or systems failure. It is a deliberate act the pilot performs. A pilot who has genuinely taken battle damage does not broadcast his position to every receiver in range, including Iranian military facilities. He exits the threat environment at maximum speed and communicates through encrypted channels. He does not light himself up on Flight Radar 24. The 7700 squawk is the signature of a pilot managing a maintenance emergency through the Civil Military Aviation Coordination System. The transponder going dark upon entering UAE airspace is standard operational security for military aircraft approaching an active base. The Iranian Consulate General declared victory over a maintenance fault. They are still waiting for confirmation that their weapon system caused the emergency. That call will not come, because the pilot typed those numbers himself. What the F-35 was actually doing over the Gulf of Oman before the maintenance fault interrupted the mission is the operationally important question. The answer tells you far more about where this conflict is heading. The F-35A Lightning II carries a sensor capability constellation that the Iranian coastal defense architecture was simply not designed to operate against. This is not a matter of marginal technological advantage. This is a generational gap in sensor warfare capability that the Iranian military establishment has spent the better part of a decade attempting to develop countermeasures for, and failing. The APG-81 Active Electronically Scanned Array Radar is the most capable multi-mode tactical sensor system ever installed in a fighter aircraft. Its synthetic aperture radar mode produces ground imaging at resolutions that can identify individual vehicle-sized objects under camouflage netting from ranges that keep the aircraft well beyond the engagement envelope of every coastal missile system remaining on the Iranian coast. The specific resolution capability of the APG-81 in SAR mode is classified, but what is known from declassified performance data and operational testing is that the system can generate imagery sharp enough to distinguish between types of military vehicles, to identify the specific configuration of a coastal missile launcher, to detect the heat signature patterns of recently operated equipment, all from standoff ranges that no Iranian air defense system can realistically threaten. Its air-to-surface ranging mode provides the geometric precision that makes the collected position data directly usable as targeting coordinates for strike packages. This is not reconnaissance for the sake of intelligence gathering. This is reconnaissance for the sake of precision targeting. The difference is operationally decisive. When an F-35 maps a coordinate through its SAR mode, that coordinate can be fed directly into the weapon system of a B-52, an F-15E, a naval strike aircraft, or another F-35 within the same operational architecture. The distance between sensor and shooter becomes functionally zero. The time between detection and destruction collapses from days to minutes. Its maritime surface search mode tracks small surface contacts in the specific clutter environment of the Gulf of Oman. The shallow water, the thermal variation, the radar returns from wave action, these create a challenging detection environment that previous generations of maritime patrol radar could not reliably penetrate. The APG-81 processes out the clutter through discrimination algorithms that identify the specific radar signature patterns of small boats, distinguishing them from the background noise of the maritime environment. Every boat that operates in these waters, every time it passes through the F-35's detection field, its radar signature is catalogued. The database grows with every sortie. The AN/AAQ-40 electro-optical targeting system, mounted externally on the F-35's airframe, provides a forward-looking infrared capability whose detection range for thermal signatures fundamentally changes the concealment calculus. Engine heat from recently operated mechanical systems. The residual heat patterns of covered boat storage facilities. The thermal signature of a generator that has been running within the past several hours to charge batteries or power communications equipment. The AN/AAQ-40 detects these thermal signatures through materials that block optical wavelengths but transmit infrared energy. A fast attack boat that was operated within the past several hours retains measurable engine heat even after the engine is shut down and the boat is moved under camouflage netting or into a covered shelter. The EOIR system detects that thermal signature. The targeting system records the coordinates. The collection database grows. The AN/ASQ-239 electronic warfare system passively monitors the electromagnetic environment without emitting any detectable signal. It catalogues every radar emission, every radio frequency transmission, every electronic signal across the broad frequency range it covers. In the context of Iranian coastal fast attack boat operations, this means recording every communication between coastal IRGC commanders and their boat crew stations, every radar activation at coastal surveillance positions, every electronic signal associated with the command and control infrastructure that makes a coordinated swarm operable, rather than a collection of individual uncoordinated boats. You cannot coordinate 130 speedboats in two formations without command and control communications. Those communications are electromagnetic signals. Electromagnetic signals are what the AN/ASQ-239 passively collects without the Iranian system ever knowing the collection is occurring. The electronic warfare officer at a coastal surveillance radar station does not know that the F-35 orbiting 40 nautical miles offshore is recording every frequency the radar uses, every pulse repetition interval, every scan pattern. That data becomes part of the electronic order of battle that the suppression of enemy air defenses mission uses to blind the Iranian coastal defense architecture when the strike package arrives. The distributed aperture system. 6 infrared cameras stitched around the airframe, feeding the pilot's helmet display a spherical situational awareness picture, provides the 360-degree threat awareness that allows the F-35 to operate in the ISR collection mode without dedicating the pilot's attention to threat scanning at the expense of sensor management. The pilot can monitor the collection operation, manage the sensor modes, and maintain situational awareness simultaneously in a way that earlier generation aircraft architectures could not achieve. Earlier generation aircraft required the pilot to physically maneuver the aircraft to point sensors at specific directions. The F-35 pilot sees the entire threat environment simultaneously through the helmet-mounted display. He does not have to choose between threat awareness and collection efficiency. He gets both at the same time. The mission this specific F-35 was executing before the maintenance fault interrupted it was ISR collection against the Iranian coastal fast attack boat infrastructure. Finding where the IRGC is hiding its boats, finding where they are fueled, finding where they are maintained, finding where the command nodes that coordinate them are located, finding where the coastal missile systems that protect the boat staging areas are positioned, finding, in the most operationally complete sense of the word, the complete physical map of the maritime threat infrastructure that the resumed strike campaign needs to address comprehensively rather than reactively. The operational logic behind this mission is the specific insight that separates the whack-a-mole approach to the fast attack boat problem from the comprehensive solution. And understanding this distinction is the key to understanding why the resumed bombing that follows the ceasefire collapse will look fundamentally different from the opening phases of Project Freedom. The whack-a-mole approach is what this conflict has been producing in its naval engagement dimension. Boats appear in the water, American forces destroy them. More boats appear from the coves and shelters and covered storage facilities along the Iranian coast. 7 fast attack boats sunk on Project Freedom's Day 1. Additional engagements on subsequent days. The destroyers and cruisers of the carrier strike groups have been effective at eliminating boats that deploy into the open water. But the IRGC's total fast attack inventory, which began this conflict at approximately 1,000 hulls distributed across 31 coves along 120 kilometers of coastline, cannot be reduced to zero through individual open water engagements alone. The boats that are not in the water when the engagement happens are not in the engagement. They are in their shelters, being maintained and fueled and crewed for the next sortie. The attrition rate from open water engagements, however effective, does not outpace the IRGC's ability to rotate boats from storage to deployment. The whack-a-mole approach keeps the threat alive indefinitely. The comprehensive solution addresses the boats where they live, rather than where they deploy. Find every cove. Find every covered storage facility. Find every fuel depot. Find every maintenance facility. Find every command and control node that makes the swarm operationally coherent. And then strike all of them simultaneously with B-52s and B-1Bs delivering large area ordnance against the coastal storage complexes. With F-15Es carrying GBU-72 advanced penetrating weapons against hardened underground storage facilities. With A-10 Warthogs engaging exposed boats in open coves with the GAU-8 Avenger. With naval aviation providing the precision engagement at coastal facilities that the carrier strike groups can sustain continuously throughout the campaign. You do not fight the swarm in the water. You address the swarm's logistics layer, the fuel, the maintenance, the shelter, the crew staging, the command and control, before the swarm has the operational opportunity to deploy. The IRGC's fast attack boat doctrine depends on the boats being able to sortie from dispersed, concealed locations, execute their engagement, and return to different concealed locations where they can be refueled, rearmed, and readied for the next mission. If the concealed locations are destroyed, if the fuel storage is burning, if the maintenance facilities are cratered, if the command and control nodes are off the air, the boats in the water become isolated assets that can be eliminated individually without replacement. The swarm becomes a collection of stranded hulls. The F-35 over the Gulf of Oman was completing one sortie's worth of collection toward that comprehensive targeting package. The maintenance fault that produced the 7700 Squawk interrupted the mission. The next F-35 that launches from Al Dhafra picks up where the interrupted mission left off. And when the targeting package is complete, when every cove and warehouse and underground shelter and command node on that 120-kilometer coastline has been mapped with the precision that the F-35 sensor suite provides, the comprehensive strike that 130 speedboats in 2 formations cannot survive at the logistics layer is authorized and executed. The Iranian propaganda machine declaring a shoot-down was giving a combat victory speech over a targeting intelligence collection sortie. The boats in their shelters are going to discover what that sortie was actually building when the ordnance that the collected coordinates enable starts arriving at those coordinates. The maintenance fault delayed the completion of the targeting package by 1 sortie. It did not cancel the mission. It did not change the operational objective. It did not alter the fundamental strategic logic that is driving events toward their conclusion. The F-35 that the Iranian Consulate General declared shot down was building the map that the Iranian coastal defense architecture is about to discover. Now let us address the Strait of Hormuz sovereignty demand with the full analytical depth it deserves. Because this specific demand, Iran wanting all 21 miles, is not just diplomatically unacceptable, it is the institutionally revealing document of what the IRGC's actual strategic objective has been throughout this entire conflict. And understanding it explains why the ceasefire collapse was inevitable from the moment Iran submitted this counter-proposal. The Strait of Hormuz is the most important maritime choke point on Earth for global energy supply. Through this 21-mile-wide navigable passage transits approximately 20 to 30% of the world's seaborne oil, a substantial share of global liquefied natural gas, and the commercial cargo traffic that the economies of every Gulf state, most of Europe, and significant portions of Asia depend on. The geographic reality that Iran's northern coastline and Oman's southern coastline bracket this passage has given Iran a structural position of extraordinary leverage that predates the Islamic Republic and would exist regardless of Iranian government composition. Geography is the original source of Iranian strategic power in the Persian Gulf. Everything else, the military capability, the diplomatic positioning, the asymmetric warfare doctrine, is derivative of this geographic fact. International maritime law has a specific and well-developed framework for exactly this geographic situation. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which every major maritime nation in the world has ratified or treats as customary international law, establishes the right of transit passage through international straits. This right is not conditional on the bordering state's approval. It does not require payment of fees or tolls to the bordering state. It does not require vessels to obtain permission from the bordering state before transiting. It is the legally codified recognition that international straits connecting areas of high seas are international waterways whose freedom of navigation cannot be subject to the unilateral authority of any single bordering nation. The specific reason this principle exists in international law is precisely to prevent the arrangement that Iran's counterproposal demands. Iran's demand for full sovereignty over all 21 miles, the complete navigable width of the strait from its own coastline to Oman's opposite shore, is the demand for the legal authority to be the toll operator of the world's most important energy transit corridor. Every vessel that wants to move oil from the Persian Gulf to global markets would require Iranian permission to do so. Every country whose energy security depends on Gulf oil would be permanently subject to Iranian political conditions as the price of access to the fuel their economies need. Every government that Iran considers hostile, every policy that Iran opposes, every diplomatic position that Iran finds inconvenient, all of these could be enforced through the threat of transit denial that sovereign control of the strait would provide. This is not a negotiating position from which creative diplomatic drafting can find a compromise. This is the institutional expression of a strategic objective that is incompatible with the basic principles of international order that every major nation in the world has committed to upholding. The United States cannot accept it. China cannot accept it, because Chinese energy imports transit through the strait. Russia cannot accept it, because global energy markets in which a single state controls the world's most important transit point are markets that operate by fundamentally different rules. Japan cannot accept it. South Korea cannot accept it. India cannot accept it. Every economy in the world whose energy inputs travel through the Persian Gulf cannot accept it. The demand is not unreasonable because it goes too far in a negotiation. It is categorically incompatible with the structure of international order because it asks the world to accept a new and permanent arrangement in which a single revisionist state controls the valve on the world's energy supply. For 40 years, Iran has been pursuing this objective through asymmetric means rather than formal legal claims, through the threat of closure, through mining operations, through fast attack boat harassment, through coastal missile deployments, through proxy operations that extend the threat into multiple theaters simultaneously. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' entire maritime strategy has been the institutionalized implementation of extortion logic. Maintain a credible threat against the strait that cannot be permanently eliminated without accepting the political costs of full military conflict, and use that threat to extract diplomatic concessions, sanction relief, and regional political accommodation. The mafia does not need the deed to the building to collect rent. It just needs to be credible about what happens if you do not pay. Iran's counterproposal is asking for the deed, the formal legal recognition of what has been operating as an implicit threat for 4 decades. And the Trump administration said totally unacceptable, because accepting it would mean that the implicit extortion arrangement becomes an explicit treaty right. The world would have formally agreed that Iran owns the strait. that Iranian permission is required for transit, that every government that depends on Persian Gulf energy supply has accepted permanent Iranian veto over its energy access as the price of the agreement that ended this specific conflict. No American administration could accept that. No American administration would accept that. And the fact that Iran submitted this demand as its formal position tells you that the IRGC's strategic objective has never been a negotiated settlement. It has been the codification of the leverage structure that 40 years of asymmetric warfare has been designed to establish. The enriched uranium dimension of the refusal adds the second wall that makes the counterproposal structurally impossible to accept on any terms that resolve the conflict's core driver. The International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed that Iran is sitting on approximately 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium enriched to 60%. One short technical step from the 90% enrichment level that constitutes weapons-grade material. This is not a small quantity with only civilian applications. Civilian nuclear power plants operate on fuel enriched to between 3 and 5%. 60% enriched uranium has no civilian nuclear power application that justifies the enrichment program and the accumulated stockpile that Iran has built. 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, further processed to weapons grade, represents the fissile material for multiple nuclear devices. The IAEA and every major nuclear non-proliferation analytical organization have made clear that this stockpile represents a weapons program concern of the highest order. Not a theoretical future risk, but a current material reality whose weaponization timeline is measured in weeks rather than years once the political decision to proceed is made. Iran's counterproposal refuses to negotiate this stockpile. Not reduce it, not transfer it, not convert it. Not subject it to enhanced IAEA monitoring. The 440 kilograms stay in Iran under IRGC custody at near weapons-grade enrichment without constraint. This demand is asking the United States to lift the entire pressure campaign, the blockade, the sanctions, the frozen assets, in exchange for an agreement that explicitly leaves the most dangerous element of the Iranian threat program intact and unconstrained. Trump's response deserves close textual analysis. I've just read the response from Iran's so-called representatives. The phrase so-called representatives is the specific language of dismissal. I don't like it is the president's unmediated assessment without diplomatic qualification. Totally unacceptable is the formal characterization that closes the diplomatic phase. The Truth Social post that followed frames the operational consequences. 47 years of Iranian games. The specific accounting of cash transfers, hundreds of billions. The $1.7 billion in physical currency. The suitcases and satchels. The roadside bombs that killed American service members. The 42,000 protesters killed. And the conclusion? They will be laughing no longer. Presidential Truth Social posts in this conflict have functioned as operational announcements. The bombing will start at a much higher level and intensity, was posted, and then the bombs fell. We'll get it with whatever we want, was posted, while the MV Ocean Trader was positioning. They will be laughing no longer is not a rhetorical flourish. It is an announcement. Iran's response. It doesn't matter at all. No one in Iran drafts plans to please Trump. Is the institutional bravado of a regime that has chosen performance over calculation. 551 ballistic missiles and 29 cruise missiles and more than 2,000 drones intercepted. 7 fast attack boats on the sea floor. 3 major tankers disabled and smoking in the Gulf of Oman. Bandar Abbas and Kish Island struck. The oil storage 40 days from overflow. The salary payments failing across the security apparatus. The IRGC Commander-in-Chief named on an Israeli targeting list. The Supreme Leader reportedly incapacitated in a bunker. This is the behavior of an institution that has chosen performance over calculation. The calculation would require acknowledging that totally unacceptable from this president produces the operational consequence that the MV Ocean Trader's positioning, the F-35 ISR missions, the Israeli strike plan submission, and the "they will be laughing no longer" conclusion are collectively describing. The Israeli strike plan deserves specific analytical engagement because it defines the scope of the resumed bombing in ways that distinguish it from the previous phases of this conflict. 1 to 2 weeks of sustained strikes with possible extension. The targeted assassination of IRGC Commander-in-Chief and other senior IRGC commanders. An urgent Netanyahu call regarding the plan's substance and timing. The coordination mechanism through which the American and Israeli operational architectures that executed Epic Fury together are being aligned for the resumed campaign. The Commander-in-Chief's targeting represents the decapitation objective that compound strikes on facilities do not achieve. Infrastructure can be rebuilt, people cannot. The IRGC's command structure, already operating without the Supreme Leader's direct guidance due to his incapacitation, already struggling with a command vacuum left by the naval commander's death in the early conflict phase, would face with his elimination the specific absence of its coordinating institutional apex. At the moment when the economic pressure of the 40-day storage countdown and the military pressure of the resumed bombing are simultaneously compressing every aspect of Iran's operational capacity, the Supreme Leader in a bunker or secret location, alive but condition unknown. Iran with a nominal Supreme Leader who is incapacitated and isolated, combined with an IRGC Commander-in-Chief eliminated in the first wave of the resumed strikes, combined with the oil storage overflow beginning to force permanent well closures. Salary payment failures accumulating across every level of the security apparatus. This is the institutional configuration from which recovery is measured in years rather than months. The Artesh dimension is the internal pressure that runs in parallel with all of the above. The regular Iranian army soldiers who were sent to frontline positions with 10 bullets, who were used as cannon fodder and human shields by IRGC commanders who positioned their own units differently. Those soldiers and their officers are making loyalty calculations that the resumed bombing will pressure from every direction simultaneously. When the IRGC command is eliminated and the oil wells begin shutting down and the salary payments stop entirely, the Artesh loyalty calculation will be revised by the specific arithmetic of institutional survival. The Charles de Gaulle's positioning in the Red Sea. The $25 billion emergency arms package for Gulf partners. The Saudi and Kuwaiti base access restoration. The coalition architecture is the external pressure that compounds everything above. Iran needed the international community to fracture around the American position. The international community has not fractured. It is aligned with increasing coherence, converting neutrals into adversaries by striking ships with Chinese nationals aboard, seizing Chinese-owned vessels, hitting French-flagged commercial ships. Every taunt produces a new addition to the coalition. Every multi-front attack hardens the alignment that the taunt was supposed to fracture. Things are going to heat up very hot before they cool back off. The diplomatic phase has concluded with a totally unacceptable rejection. The targeting packages are being completed by F-35 ISR missions over the Gulf of Oman. The Israeli strike plan with IRGC command targeting is on Washington's desk. The MV Ocean Trader is in the Indian Ocean. Space Force is watching the enrichment facility at badge number precision. The President has posted, "They will be laughing no longer." The 40-day oil storage countdown is running. The heating up is the resumed bombing at the higher level and intensity than before. The cooling off, when it comes, is what follows the achieved objective. The enriched uranium no longer in Iranian possession. The IRGC command structure eliminated. The institutional cascade of command, decapitation and financial exhaustion and military defeat producing the specific outcome that force achieves when diplomacy fails to produce what the situation requires. The F-35 that squawked 7,700 was doing the job the conflict needs done before the resumed bombing can execute comprehensively. The maintenance fault interrupted one sortie's worth of collection. The next sortie is continuing. The Iranian Consulate General, who declared victory over a maintenance emergency, and the state media that built the narrative architecture of a combat shootdown around 4 digits that a pilot typed himself, are going to discover what the collection was building when the targeting package is complete and the bombs arrive at the coordinates the sensor suite mapped. The mafia boss who wanted all 21 miles and the entire nuclear stockpile and the return of 47 years of frozen assets in exchange for nothing is about to discover what totally unacceptable produces. And the Iranian officials who said it doesn't matter at all, no one in Iran drafts plans to please Trump, are going to find out exactly how much it matters when the plan that was designed to please no one, obligated to no one, and constrained only by what the operational capability can achieve, is authorized and executed. The targeting package is being completed. The MV Ocean Trader is positioned. Space Force is watching. The Israeli plan is on the desk. The 40 days are running. And the boats in their shelters along 120 kilometers of Iranian coastline are about to find out what the F-35 that the Iranian Consulate General declared shot down was actually building a map of while its sensors were running. The conflict has entered its terminal phase. The diplomatic track has closed. The military track is executing. The targeting intelligence is being collected. The strike packages are being assembled. The coalition is aligned. The internal Iranian pressure is building from the economic direction of the oil storage countdown and from the institutional direction of the command structure decapitation and from the loyalty direction of the Artesh's calculations and from the information direction of the blackout cracking under material reality. All of these vectors are converging on the same operational moment. Every prior Truth Social post in this conflict that described what comes next has been followed by what it described. The bombing will start at a much higher level and intensity, was followed by the bombing of Bandar Abbas and Kish Island. We'll get it with whatever we want, was followed by the MV Ocean Trader's positioning and the Space Force monitoring that the President described. They will be laughing no longer, will be followed by what that language announces. The Iranian propaganda machine claimed a victory over a maintenance fault. The Iranian counterproposal demanded the legal recognition of 40 years of asymmetric extortion. The Iranian enrichment stockpile sits at 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium that the counterproposal refused to negotiate. The Iranian command structure is operating with an incapacitated supreme leader and a naval commander already dead, and a commander-in-chief whose name is on an Israeli targeting list. The Iranian oil storage is 40 days from overflow. The Iranian salary payments are failing. The Iranian information blackout is cracking. The Iranian Artesh is making loyalty calculations. The Iranian coastal defense architecture is being mapped by F-35s that are completing the targeting package that the resumed bombing will execute. And none of this happened because of a 4-digit code that a pilot typed into a transponder panel. The 7700 Squawk was the surface event that the Iranian propaganda machine grabbed as a narrative victory. The real story was what the F-35 was doing before the maintenance fault interrupted the mission. The real story was what the sensor suite was collecting. The real story was what the coordinates were building toward. The real story was what happens when the targeting package is complete and the comprehensive strike addresses the fast attack boat fleet at the logistics layer and the IRGC command structure at the decapitation layer and the enriched uranium at the material layer and the Strait of Hormuz demand at the strategic layer. That is what the F-35 was actually doing over the Gulf of Oman. And that is what the Iranian Consulate General, who declared victory over a maintenance emergency, is about to discover. The question now is not whether the resumed bombing will come. The diplomatic phase has concluded. The military positioning is complete. The targeting packages are being finalized. The question is what the resumed bombing achieves in its first wave that determines the trajectory of everything that follows. Does the comprehensive fast attack boat targeting package complete within the next 72 hours and produce the logistics layer strike that addresses the 130 boat fleet before it can deploy again? If it does, the naval dimension of this conflict changes fundamentally. The IRGC loses its primary maritime threat capability in a single coordinated engagement. The boats in the water become isolated assets that can be eliminated individually. The blockade becomes uncontestable. The strait becomes secure. The leverage that Iran has been building for 40 years collapses in a single night. Does the Israeli strike plan's command targeting execute in the first wave of the resumed bombing? If it does, the IRGC command structure faces the specific absence of its coordinating institutional apex at the moment of maximum operational pressure. The decentralized core autonomy model becomes a cascade of disconnected units that cannot coordinate a coherent response. Does eliminating the IRGC's commander-in-chief in the context of the supreme leader's incapacitation produce the institutional collapse that the 40-day storage countdown is approaching from the economic direction simultaneously? If it does, the Iranian regime faces the specific convergence of military decapitation and economic collapse and internal loyalty dissolution that no authoritarian system has survived in the modern era. Does the mafia boss who wanted all 21 miles and 440 kilograms and 47 years of frozen assets discover that totally unacceptable has a specific military meaning when this specific president says it? He is about to. The F-35 that squawked 7700 was not shot down. It was not crippled. It was not driven from the sky by Iranian air defences. It was completing a sortie toward the targeting package that the resumed bombing will execute. The maintenance fault that produced the emergency code interrupted one mission. The next mission is already collecting the coordinates that the next strike wave will use. The Iranian consulate general who declared victory over a maintenance fault does not know what the F-35 was actually doing. The Iranian state media that built the narrative architecture around 4 digits a pilot typed himself does not know what the sensor suite was collecting. The Iranian command structure that posted "it doesn't matter at all" does not know how much it matters. They are about to find out. They will be laughing no longer. The targeting package is being completed. The MV Ocean Trader is positioned. Space Force is watching the enrichment site. The Israeli plan is on the desk. The 40 days are running. The boats in their shelters along 120 kilometers of Iranian coastline are about to discover what the F-35 that the Iranian consulate general declared shot down was actually building a map of while its sensors were running. And the mafia boss who wanted all 21 miles is about to discover what totally unacceptable produces when the president who said it has the largest conventional military force in human history, the most advanced sensor architecture ever installed in a fighter aircraft, a coalition aligned with increasing coherence, and an Israeli strike plan that targets the command structure at the decapitation layer. Stay informed, stay ahead, because they will be laughing no longer is not a rhetorical flourish. It is an announcement, and every prior announcement in this conflict has been followed by what it described. This one is no different.